the R22, the pilot adds collective pitch here and throttle right here on the same handle, while using these pedals to balance the torque via the tail rotor. This is what I mean by a balancing act. To make life easier, there's a switch to automatically slave the throttle to the collective. The pilot uses the joystick to lean the helicopters left and right, fore and aft. But unlike the pilot of the R22, we don't have gauges to aid in flying, and our body's not inside the model, and thus we depend on situational awareness to correct the attitude of the model. First, undo one end of the linkage. I prefer not to use my fingernails or a screwdriver so as to not chance damaging the link. I use ball link pliers to get the job done. Now the linkage is supported at one end only. The weight of the linkage alone should cause the link to swing down freely. If it doesn't, it's too tight, like this one. So here's what you do. Gently squeeze the ball link sides with a pair of pliers. Give it a gentle squeeze and check for play. It's important to squeeze square against the ball itself and not let it slip sideways while squeezing. Also, don't play Hercules here. Actually, in either case, we'll set them at about 10 degrees at full collective pitch. The 30% nitro would just make the blade spin faster. Of course, this coincides with full throttle. We want the pitch at about 6 degrees for hovering when the stick is at the neutral position, and about 0 degrees pitch at full low throttle collective.
I was reading in a magazine that I should set the low end pitch to -3 or 4 degrees, so I set it that way. Why do you say set it at 0 degrees?
That's because once we're at the flying field, the action I'll teach you for when you let the model get too high will be to reduce the collective stick towards the full low position. With negative pitch, the model would react much too quickly for a beginner's reflexer and could slam into the ground, causing damage. With the low end pitch at 0 degrees, the model's response to the collective stick input won't be too sensitive, and the model would instead float down. When you're ready to enter forward flight and fly the model around, we'll change it to a bit more negative pitch. But for learning to hover, the model's response will be more comfortable with the pitch set at 0 degrees.
I followed the instructions in my manual carefully when I built the model, but I didn't have one of those pitch gauges and just guessed for the low pitch setting. So how close are the pitch settings on my model?
Actually, they're pretty close. I'll just use the low end pitch trimmer for your Futaba 6VH, and I'll adjust the low end pitch back to 0 degrees. Now we just need to be sure the linkages for the blades are the same for both sides of the model. This is very important on a model helicopter. Looks like the throttle linkage is way out of whack with respect to the rule of 90. Here's how we'll fix it. First, I'll set both dial trimmers to the midway point and the throttle trim all the way down. Now we'll do a mechanical adjustment. Align the marks on the throttle collective stick of the transmitter to exactly mid-stick. Now make sure the servo arm forms a 90-degree angle to the linkage rod. Now check that the carburetor arm makes a 90-degree angle also.
It doesn't.
No problem. I'll just adjust the link to get the length right.
But now we don't know where the carburetor opening is set to.
Easy. I use a digital voltmeter that I plug into the battery charge jack to see what the condition is. Well, these guys are a little bit low.
How low are they?
They're 4.7 volts.
Is that too low?
Yeah, I like to stop when it gets to 4.8 volts.
Does that mean we have to quit?
No, what we'll do is we'll use a quick field charger and we'll top them up.
Wow, that's great.
And we're ready. About 10-15 minutes and we'll be ready to go.
Great.
While the batteries are charging, I've got a couple other things I'd like to show you.
A laptop computer? What did you bring that for?
I brought it to operate this simulator. Just as a hula hoop's a training aid, so is a flight simulator. The airlines and NASA use them to enhance training. So do we. You ready to try it, Dean?
Sure.
Okay, here you go. How's it feel?
Feels fine, just like the real thing. Beginners can hover a whole tank of fuel by the end of the 4th gallon.
Some take a bit longer. I hope you enjoyed the segment on setting up Dean's Kyosho Nexus and the hover instruction. You know, one of the most frequently asked questions has to do with scale RC helicopters. Scale helicopters, of course, are reproductions of the full-size helicopters. This is my Century Helicopter Products UH-60 Blackhawk. Century manufactures both 30 and 60 size fuselages. So if you learn with a 30, you can add a fuselage to that, or if you want a larger machine, you can definitely get fuselages. The accessories that are available from Century are all-encompassing. They give you everything you need to finish off the machine to your satisfaction. For example, the carbon fiber drive shaft going down the fuselage through a 45-degree gearbox, and it outputs to a scale 4-bladed tail rotor assembly. And that's not all. For example, this servo right here, it operates the scale horizontal stabilizer assembly, just like the real thing. And there's more. Going to the front of the machine, you can look in and see that we have a complete scale cockpit. We have the rudder pedals, or tail rotor pedals to be more accurate, the seat, even the seat belts, the collective, and the cyclics. In fact, we have a complete instrument cluster, and the doors are hinged and latch, much like the real thing. We even have scale rivet detail. The crew window is a sliding assembly. In fact, even the side cargo doors are also sliders. I have the miniature aircraft XL mechanics and the OS61 engine sitting outside because we're doing a little preventive maintenance. And by the way, this is what's called a 60 class fuselage. A 30 class would naturally be a little bit smaller. The details on this thing, they're absolutely beautiful. For example, even the main gear operates as per the real thing. 100 letters actually, from fellas asking me about learning to fly with a scale RC helicopter. Normally my answer has been an absolute don't even think about it. I mean, my 60 size Blackhawk has not only thousands of dollars invested in it, but hundreds, perhaps 1,000 hours invested in it also. You wouldn't want to even think about learning to fly on something like this. Enter the Ergo 50 Type 2 CCPM clothed in a Robinson R22 body. Look at this beautiful machine. You can learn to fly with this. It's a little bit bigger than the other helicopters. It's powered by a 50. And one of the things that I think is a huge advantage actually is that the polypropylene body is bigger. It has presence. We also have polypropylene covering the boom assembly. And when this helicopter gets a little far away from you, it's easier to see.